Hey there, welcome into the Ben Maynard program. Thanks for being here. Before we get started, a little bit of housekeeping to take care of. As a reminder, this program is available on multiple podcast platforms like Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Spotify. Or if you just search the Ben Maynard program, you'll have many options to choose from. Just pick your option. Or if you can't resist going to Buzzsprout, where I want to steer everyone, that's where my website is, then give it a go. But if you can't resist all this right here, and maybe a little bit of that over there, or right there we go, yeah, and you're watching on YouTube, then I ask that you please subscribe to the channel. I don't know anything about a notification bell, but if you have to hit the notification bell, do that. Give me a thumbs up and leave a comment. You know I read your comments. You know that I reply to your comments. So those are all very greatly appreciated. Last but not least, follow me on Instagram, Ben Maynard Program, all one word. With that, there are plenty of ways to take in this show for your dancing and listening pleasure. And without further ado, you can see right next to me, if you're watching on YouTube, is the great Adam Holland. Wait, this way, here we go. Is the great Adam Holland. And yes, great with a capital G. For those of you who may not be familiar, he is the lead guitarist and vocals for the Steve Augeri Band. So, Adam, I can't thank you enough for doing this. You made my last couple of weeks.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It's been nice talking to you leading up to this as well, getting to know you. So I'm glad we're here. Finally, we figured it out. And I realized that what time zone I was in and what time zone you were in. So we finally got it together. So thank you for your patience.
Oh, no. Yeah, no, that's great. I was able to work it out. I always get worried about trying to book guests, especially that are outside of the time zone, because of my work schedule, and to try to explain my work schedule, it's just it doesn't really do any good. So
it's all good. The only problem was, listen, it all worked out. The only thing was, I didn't think that we weren't in the same time zone. So once we figured that out, it became a lot easier. So
yeah,
all good. Here we are. We made it. We did it.
Yeah, no, this is great. It just came about through what was it, podcast guest. I just clicked on music category, wanted to see what musicians I had an opportunity to invite. You were the only one. But I'm scrolling down the page and I saw your picture and I was like, wait a second. I know this guy. I know who this is.
That's so cool. That's been a great service. I must say I've done a lot of cool things. It's really, I took a chance with that, and it's been great. So
that's
like
awesome.
Here we are talking, and the people who I've spoken to have been fans, and it's been really cool. So
that's great. You have a great story, and that's what this show is all about, is people telling their stories. And I just really want to dig into that. But
sure.
Here's where I want to start, because everyone out there, Adam is an accomplished musician, been doing this for a long time, and he just released in March, I believe it was, his first
something like that. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, his first solo album.
Correct.
It's an all instrumental. It's called Rapture.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, no, that's it. Just, first off, I'm going to I just want to tell you that I really, really enjoy it a lot. And in fact, not to suck up, but I was listening to it before you came into studio, just to kind of get myself in the mood. And that's the kind of album it is. It's something that you can put on when I was thinking about this. If I'm outside doing yard work, I can listen to Rapture. I can listen to it front to back.
You are correct.
I can do it, just sitting here in the studio doing nothing, whatever. I can listen to it at any time of day or night, and it's a beautiful piece of music. So talk about it a little bit.
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And as a songwriter, as a pop songwriter, I never really did or wanted to do an instrumental record, like a guitar shred, or guitar record. So during COVID, when we had all this time, I started to do these Instagram 1 minute little songs. Just literally, we're all having a good time doing stuff. The Steve Augeri record came from that. This came from that time, all of us writing. And then a bunch of those songs ended up becoming real songs, which is, I'd say probably half of Rapture. And then Gerard and I started to trade a million songs, Craig and I, and we just had songs flying around that were songs. So instead of putting lyrics and vocals, they're like 3 minute songs, still with like a chorus and a bridge, but instead of having lyrics, they have guitar solos. So I also tried to show a spectrum of music, not just all hard rock. I kind of wanted to show my skills at maybe soundtrack and TV and things of that. So just to show a little diverse spectrum of what Adam Holland can do. It's not all just, balls to the wall, heavy stuff. So, and back to the comment that a lot of times when I'm doing something around the house, whether it's cleaning, cooking, whatever it is, I put on instrumental music. Like I love guitar players like Andy Woods, Andy Timmons, like Steve Vai, Satriani, all those great, you know, guys who put out instrumental records, John Petrucci. And I kind of wanted to do something in that world. I'm like, wow, this is really, really good music. So that's how it all came together.
All these New York guys you're bringing
Exactly.
up.
Well, I think they
Yeah.
are all New York guys. Yeah.
Yeah, I think most of them are.
I did, not on purpose, but yes.
What I really like about it, besides the fact, like I said, it just no matter what you're doing, you can put it on and just really enjoy it, just dig into it, is a lot of instrumentals, especially guitar-based instrumental albums that come out, whether it's back in the 80s.
Right.
I'll say, for the exception of, to my ears anyway, the untrained musician that I am, with the exception of Satriani.
Right.
His songs are songs minus the lyrics.
Correct. Correct.
And that's what I get from yours. But I love your guitar tone.
Thank
The
you.
tone is, I love it. And I like the fact that there is no shredding going on. You're not trying to play a million notes at a time. It's just what each individual note is saying. And that's what really just hits me right here.
Thank you. Yeah, like I said, thank you so much. And like I said, I'm a pop songwriter, and these are sort of pop songs, but just with the melody being played on guitar as opposed to being sung with a vocal.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I'll tell my audience, sorry if you think I'm going fanboy. And I'm really not trying to, but I think in from my side of it, or for any fan, other than saying, oh, I love you, I love you, I love you, most people don't have an opportunity to compliment a musician, a singer, a performer, face to face, and really tell them how they feel about their work. Other than, this is the closest that, we're coming to it right now.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Until you guys come out here on the West Coast, and then I can take in a show.
I'm not sure if we'll be out there this year, but maybe.
Yeah. That's been very irritating as a fan.
I think we were out there last year. I know we're going to get to South Dakota this year, or North Dakota. So it's not quite that close.
So back to Rapture. Now, it's not available in physical form, but it's available on all the streaming services, right?
Correct. Yes. We just went streaming. I was going to do a CD, but I don't know if the demand really called for it. So I just wanted to have it out in the world. I wanted it to be out there for my personal, guitar playing, to have it out there for the songwriting, and just to have something, a cool, expressive thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And to put out physical stuff, I'm assuming that you and I are very close in age. I'm going to be 59 in August.
I'm 59, so there you go.
Well, there you go. Then we are. So, we're used to sitting on the floor in our bedroom.
Right.
You put the album on the stereo, you drop the needle, and you sit there and you stare at the album cover.
Right.
You read the liner notes.
Yes.
You open the gatefold, or if it's a Kiss album, you turn it over and shake it out to see what kind of goodies come out of it.
Absolutely. I'm from that generation. I love that time in my life. It was great.
There's just something about it. It's just, I don't know.
I
and
think
it's hard to
the most excited I ever got for a physical, I don't know, I remember this one. I mean, all of them, but the Kiss records, but Fair Warning, Van Halen. I don't know why. I remember that. Like, I couldn't wait to get that record. Like, that was one of those records I couldn't wait to get. I went home by myself and like,
yeah.
put it on, took out the liner notes. It's like, what's that? What's this? What's happening? That I remember those days. It was great.
And that's what geeks like us
Yes.
did and still do. I still love musical in a physical form. It's unfortunate that most vehicles now don't even have a CD player in them, which really is terrible.
Which is wild, but I'll tell you the difference now, which is I don't know, better or worse or different, but social media, you could like literally like see this person that you never would have any contact with. You can hear them talking. You can go, you're in their kitchen. All of a sudden, it's like in the studio. That's pretty wild, man. To take a ride with like you're an artist that you like.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know, for some reason, I'm totally intrigued by two things. I'm a big fan of a guy named Jason Hook. He was in and also
Yes, he was in
Five Finger Death Punch.
but yes, right.
His new band, Flat Black, he's done the great like Instagram type of thing where he brings you into like the rehearsals and it's just like you see him in the studio and it's great. And so it's cool. I'm a fan. So that for me, that's like, wow, I love it. I'm also enjoying, the Smashing Pumpkins had a new guitar player and Kiki Wong, who's great choice. And like like she's a big Instagrammer. So seeing her in this new, place and her just getting to see it is like unbelievable. You see the rehearsals, you see the stage, you see the gear. So I think that's the new liner note. That's my point of this is that's the geek, and it's like you can see it in real time. It's pretty wild.
But for us, it's just not physical, though. That's the
True,
thing, It's
true.
that the cool thing about obviously having something physical is they can never take it away from you.
That's true.
Where sometimes an artist will have a deal with the streaming service or whatever, it goes up, they take it
Right.
down,
That's a
whatever it
good
might
point.
be. So physical, it's always there.
No, and
And
also back to that point when you did play the record, whether it was if you came back to that record months later, those same like you went back to the liner notes. So you did it always. You're right. It always lived there. Hold on, wait. Do you see it? I'm trying to point to my. I have some Valentine vinyl behind me.
I love it. I love it. And we're getting into that.
Well, yeah,
Don't
someone
trust.
sent me that. I don't know where that came from, Europe somewhere, but it's pretty cool. It has liner notes. There you go.
Nice. Um, so okay, so back to Rapture. Um, everybody out there, it's available on all the streaming services. Check it out. It really, really is good. If you like tasty guitar work, if you like something that just I don't know, for me, like I said, it gets me right here. And that's,
Thank you.
I love any kind of music when it hits me right there. I know it's good.
Thank you.
So anybody, I mean, anyone and everyone, check it out. It's called Rapture. It's on all the streaming services. How long did it take you to get it all together? You said you started in
It took about a
2020.
year to really like once I started to hone in. Because again, I had these songs in smaller pieces. Then I'm like, okay, let's really focus. And then Gerard, like I said, Gerard started doing all kinds of cool things with some like loop-based recordings, and I don't know, I was really intrigued by that. And then, so about a year, and then I had, then I really mixed it and really, went in and really honed in on it. It was just kind of quick stuff off. The Instagram stuff was just kind of quick, throw it together and I played along to like a track. So they took those
Right.
tracks and redid them and made them into real things. Some of those,
Okay. Um, okay. So how long have you been playing guitar?
a long time. Like we already mentioned our age, so it's out of the bag. So I've been playing since I'm about 11 years old.
Since about 11 years
Yeah,
old.
it's a young kid.
And I like to ask a lot of people that come on the program, but especially for a musician, can you think back to a time or a place, an event where you heard something, whether it was on the radio, your parents were playing it, whatever it might be, but you heard something and that was it. The music grabbed you right there and you were just hooked.
definitely. It was about, probably three separate things. So first of all, my older sister, a couple of years older than me, and she would play every morning in the house. She would put on some record loud, like it was like the whole house would wake up. It was kind of cool. So I remember she would play like Jungle Love, Steve Miller. She'd play Frampton Comes Alive, Foreigner, Boston, Foghat Live, which I remember full like that opening. I'm like, holy shit! Like, wow, there's feedbacking guitars. Um, Even Hall and Oates, but like what else? The Bad Company, a lot of Bad Company, but like Fleetwood Mac, and then of course Led Zeppelin. I mean, that was like holy shit. And then I heard a song by the Orleans called "Still the One," a huge
Oh
'70s
yeah,
yacht rock.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
The guitar solo, I'm like, holy shit! That I still to this day, it's one of my favorite guitar solos. And then I think somehow we were up in the Berkshires, and we went to see Jackson Brown outside. It was, I guess, it was a show where like a family could go. So, and I saw Jackson Brown play live, and that was like the first. I mean, I was, I think, seventh grade. I was young. The first concert I ever went to, and that band. I guess I forgot what the name of the band, but Leland Sklar, all these famous musicians who I learned later, but they were like so good. I'm like, holy shit! And not that I was even a Jackson Brown fan. I barely knew who the guy was as a little kid, but
Right.
so all those, then of course I went on to start going to see all the concerts at the time. But that's the initial, those three things are the initial what got me to like, wow, this is it. This is I was like, holy crap. Then of course Kiss, Van Halen, and then it's AC/DC. It's downhill from there. I was sucked in.
Yeah. I hate to tell my story because I've mentioned it several times on this show, and I only have 50 episodes. So my audience has probably already heard it 5 times, but I like sharing it, especially with someone who is we are the same age, and
Right.
we were
Understood.
growing up at the same time listening
Right.
to a lot of the same music, and for me it was about 72, 73, and in the house, and you definitely will relate to this, stereos were big giant pieces of
They
furniture
were. They were in the room. Right.
made of real wood. They
Correct.
always had they always had about 12-inch speakers in
Yep.
them, and
Yeah, no, right. There was no less than that.
they were no joke. And so we had one in the house in our family room, and my mother had the 45 for the Beatles' Let It Be.
Oh wow.
And she would put the needle on the 45, and she sat on the floor in the family room in front of a typewriter, and as it played she typed the lyrics to the song
Oh
as
wow.
it's playing. And of course, every once in a while she stopped down and started again or whatever, but typed out those lyrics. And I still remember they were on goldenrod paper, and I took those lyrics and I would play that 45 over and over and over again, and I would pretend that I was performing in the family
Right.
room in front of nobody,
Right.
and singing "Let It Be." And that was
That's
that
cool.
was where it's just I think that's just where that was it. I was done.
No, yeah, the stereos were like I said, my sister would put this on. It was like loud. The speakers were big. It
Yeah.
was like wasn't like a little Bluetooth. It was like thumping like fucking drums. It was great. I was like, woo!
Everything in the house would shake.
I know it was looking back, it was great. I was like, but that was like the house alarm clock. It was like I remember again, Jungle Love starts with all those bells. I never forget it. I'm like, holy shit, ding, ding, ding. I'm like, it was like the craziest alarm clock. It was like, Back to the Future. I'm like, wow, what's happening here? So
Yeah.
it was cool. It was good stuff. All those great,
So,
although
all right.
all
So
those great guitar tones from the late '70s just stuck in my head. So
yeah, there's something to be said for that, and I think and you brought him up. You said we would talk about him, so I wrote down ZO2. But
yes,
that's the one thing that I appreciate, and I told the guys this way back when I had the fortunate opportunity to run into them when they were on their first tour opening for Kiss back
you
in
did. You said
'04.
that's so cool. You saw them. That's great.
Yeah, and they were standing outside the merch stand, and I
Oh, nice.
and I went and bought the CD, and then
Uh,
hey, can you guys sign it? And they were, yeah. But listening to them, I didn't even know who these guys were. I took my
right.
my son, who was 16 at the time, and we were just digging on ZO2,
Good
and
music. It sounds like classic rock. This stuff. That's why I know.
that was what I told the I told Polly. I said at the time, I said, I said, you guys have this 70s sound that you kind of just put a little tiny modern twist on it.
They absolutely do, which is why it's so good. Paulie, guys, first of all, great player.
Yeah.
What a great vocalist. The whole band. I mean, really, I really am a fan of those guys.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. They really are. They're great. And one of these days I'll get Joey on here.
He'll do it. He's not. He'll talk. Trust me. Joey's a good friend, and for a while he was briefly in the Steve Augeri band. Long story, but he was from. So we became friends then,
Okay.
and I took a deep dive. I don't know. Well, I was on a plane ride. He's like, I wrote a book. I'm like, give me the book. So I read the whole book, and I was like, I became a deep dive, and then I'm like, holy shit! I have to go. I watched plowed through 2 seasons of Z-Rock, which
Z-Rock.
was so great. Then I did a deep dive into all his records. So there was like a couple of months I was like fully immersed in like the world of ZO2, Joey Casada, Paulie. So either way, I'm
Yeah.
well versed in the world of those guys. It's a good world. But my point is the music, like Paulie has that great guitar sound, good old fashioned Les Paul into a Marshall.
Yeah.
He's that kind of 70s. You're right. His vocal is like, I'm not sure the singer's name. It's not, I should know this, but like Humble Pie. What's that guy?
Oh, Steve Marriott.
Yeah, he reminds you a little bit of that, really like that 70s kind of thing, which
Yeah.
we get with a modern day take. I
Mhm.
agree with you.
Yeah, just great stuff. And those guys, they're like legendary in the tri-state area.
No, it's great. They're good dudes, good dudes. And talented
Yeah.
guys, very talented.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, let me get my glasses on here.
So I'll put mine on too, so I can see.
Oh, they're coming on and off because they're just readers, and I can't see without them, and I can barely see with
On
them.
the Steve Augeri stage, like these things. So we buy these on Amazon in a box, and they just flooded around the stage because God knows who needs them at some point. So that's old man rock. Woo! Craig and I am like, just we have to keep a box of these, and like somebody grabs them. Steve
Oh,
grabs them. So
geez.
someone always needs them. So I'm like, and I lose them.
Yeah. So tell me about some of the guitarists that inspired you early on.
It's a great question. Jimmy Page obviously was the first, like, and Frampton. Those again, the '70s, the people I just mentioned, who
Right.
I had Steve Miller, really like Fly Like an Eagle. I'm like, man, what the hell? That great sound.
Steve
And
Miller's amazing.
my sister, again, it would be so loud, like this loud, like stereo. So it wasn't like just I hear it. It was like I fucking heard it. It was like woo. So like Led Zeppelin and Jimmy Page, Frampton. I mean, do you feel like we did that solo? I must have listened to that 1,000 times. But the Foghat guys, I tell you, I was the first like distortion guitar, Tom Scholz, all those guys were my first influences.
Okay.
I loved Ace Frehley. Then I heard Kiss. Oh my God, I loved Ace Frehley. And then like every other human who played guitar in 1978 when Eddie Van Halen came out, it was like, that was it.
Gotcha.
However, I also loved at the same time as I loved Van Halen and the Flash, and I loved Angus Young and that just good old fashioned, like chunky, Back in Black, just
And it's
Highway to
just
Hell.
that, like you said, it's that chunky blues based hard rock.
I think so. Yeah, those are the guys. Gary Moore. I always
Yeah.
exactly right. And then I became a fan of Slash because he was like the next he carried the torch in that bluesy vibe, which I always like Gary Moore. I love John Sykes as well. Those
Mm.
something with a bluesy, like I always like the little Flash, but with a little bluesy swagger. Warren DeMartini was that way. So was George Lynch. They all had a little bit of blues in them, which really wasn't just full on like speed. It was always some swagger in there, which is cool.
And it's right. And those guys could do that,
Right.
but they could also just bend the notes.
That's exactly right. But there's sometimes what you can do with one note is more important than what you can do with like 1,000 notes.
Absolutely.
So-
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. So there's no reason for me to ask you about your favorite bands because you're talking about all the guitarists that influenced you, and that says enough right there. Let's go way back.
Okay.
into your basement and tell us about the first band, your very first band.
It's my first in my basement, by the way. And I don't know how. I think Gerard. I've been playing with Gerard since I'm 14, so almost every band,
I'm getting to that too.
almost every band. So somehow we painted I'll send you a picture. I have it somewhere. We
All
painted the
right.
walls of the basement like Van Halen stripes.
Oh man.
Then one wall, I had a guitar. My first good guitar was a Charvel, and it had these like black and yellow, like looked like a highway sign stripes. It was cool. So we had one wall painted that way. But I had it, this guitar, I had it pre-Striper, by the way. So then when Striper came out, I'm like, oh my God, I can't play this guitar because I'm like, people like, are you like a Striper I'm like, holy shit, I had no idea. Either way. So the point is, in my basement, my first band, I mean, that was really like one of my, was Gerard,
Yeah.
a couple of high school guys, and we played at our high school. We used to play like, whatever the covers, we played Van Halen, we played Saxon, we played some Judas Priest. What else did we play? Maybe some Foreigner. But like it was a little definitely towards the heavier side. It probably was horrible, but that was sort of like that was the origin. And Gerard's been there since like the nonsensical days of foolishness of high school.
Yeah, you said about 14 and we're going to get into a little bit more, but Gerard's still around to this
He is
day. I know.
Gerard and Craig was still.
Yes. That just
It is. It's great.
it is. It's great and I think it is just so I think it's so healthy to be able to at our age still have friendships and deep relationships with people that we grew up with as kids.
Yeah.
You know,
There's my crew of people, those guys included, obviously the band, but my high school buddies are still my buddies.
I'm the same way. I've got friends that I've known since I
I think
was
that's
10 years old.
I thought that was a New York thing, but I guess that's not. It's cool. Yeah. Not many people have all that, I don't think, but
Right. It's not a yeah. It's not. I don't want to say it's abnormal, but it's not a normal thing,
right,
and that's why I think when you have something like that, man, you
right.
hang on to it.
So how I met Gerard,
All right.
I went to, it's a local, another family whose friend, I went to camp with this guy. He's one of my best friends. I've known him since I'm 8 years old. We went to, we in summer camp, like, hey, our parents showed us in this camp. We became friends. So that's how I met Gerard. He went to school at Gerard. We all lived in the same town. So either way, crazy stuff. Good times.
And it still carries on. I just think that's great.
This all still my buds to this day.
Okay, so you got married to your wife, Paula, in 2011.
Yes.
Did these guys bury you with childhood stories? Did they bury? I mean, did they go and tell Paula all these crazy stories about growing up and then just kind of throw you under the bus?
Nah, that's a good question. Probably they definitely did. I think she knew what she was buying. There's no question about it.
Okay.
But yeah, of course.
That's great. That is just I love it. That is awesome.
My daughter, I mean, I don't want to get into my whole life here, but I have some adult children and I have a young daughter. She has had.
Wait. Let's just change the name of the program. This is your life.
Yeah, no, we'll
with
just
Adam Holland.
The point of this whole thing is that she had an 80s theme party. So I'm like, oh, you need 80s stuff. I'm like, I got the legit stuff. So I pulled out some crazy, stupid 80s clothes for this party.
Hey, you know that. I don't know. There was something about growing up in the 80s. I like to say that our generation, we were right in the wheelhouse. We grew up at the right time. We were, when we were old enough to start taking in music, unfortunately, the Beatles were done by 70, but come on, 60 years later, they're still relevant.
I know, it's wild.
And you had all those bands from the British invasion. You had all this stuff coming up in the 70s, stuff that we could start to grab a hold of, and all this just great music through the 70s, the 80s, and there was some to me anyway, there's just some tremendous stuff that comes out of the 80s as well. And I know it's towards the back half of the decade, you know, the bands take a lot of heat, and I don't think it's justified.
I think that it's just, the sign every decade. Now looking back, the 80s, look at the 90s. I mean, there was then you had that ended and you went into the 2000s. Then I'm not really sure what happened in the 2010s, but my point is each decade has its sort of sound. And as you get further away from it, the 80s now is nostalgic. During the 90s, it was like you couldn't even talk about the 80s.
Yeah.
But looking back on the 90s, I mean, holy crap, what phenomenal. So I'm adding to what you're saying. I'm agreeing with you, yes. And to even go further, like now that we're a couple of decades away from the 90s, look at Pearl Jam is still like one of the biggest stream bands, not Pearl Jam, Nirvana, who haven't put
Yeah.
out a record decades.
In 35 years.
Right. So, and they're still one of the biggest stream bands. So they're still relevant. Pearl Jam is still touring like crazy. All these wonderful, bands. It's the Pumpkins, the Smash. Like I mentioned, I'm a huge Smashing Pumpkins fan. And,
Right.
they're just still like selling out the stadiums, and it's wild. So then, like I said, my older kids were growing up in that 2000s, right? So I would listen to all their bands like Paramore, Fall Out Boy, The Killers. I still, like, no doubt, I still love that. To me, has some nostalgia because it reminds me of that period of time. And
Okay.
those bands are still huge. So my point is, it's amazing that once you get some distance from each thing, like how each decade has its like cool mark on music. And but like I said, you and I grew up in the 80s. It's always going to be our baby, that 80s.
Well, tell me what you think of this, though. And yeah, the 90s, it gets their fair share of crap as well, but the 60s never gets it. The 70s never gets it. I mean, those are, but I mean, that's just the way I feel about it. I've never heard anybody say, "Oh, that music from the 70s
No,
sucked," and
no,
you
but
know,
yacht rock. I could listen to yacht rock all day long.
absolutely, absolutely.
Right?
Like for me, I like a lot of different genres, and I like, the 80s hard rock. I like the classic rock from the 60s and 70s, and I like new wave. I really enjoy like top 40 music from the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. And I guess because I had listened to a lot of top 40 radio in high school, and it was so different then, where you would hear a rock song, a disco song, a
Right. Oh,
country song,
understood.
adult contemporary song. You'd hear all of it, so you got exposed to so much of it. And
Right. And I think, yeah, it's a good, yes, I think you're right. I forgot what I was going to say. I lost my train of thought.
it's
I
okay.
mentioned country. I also really like like they call it that modern country. Late 90s to the 2000s, that
Right.
like Keith Urban, Rascal Flatts era, Tim McGraw, like Faith Hill, Jody Messina. I was like, wow, I love that era of country. I was actually, I don't know if you know, I was a Nashville writer for about 5 years because,
It's all right here in my notes.
right, because what was cool though, at that time, like the Nashville community, I guess, I don't know, the publishers were like, well, let's mix in some of that 80s rock stuff. Not
Oh,
they were
okay.
like, they're like, don't come here and be a country writer. We have plenty of that. We have
Okay.
the best of the best. But maybe come bring some of your pop rock riffs and see if they can combine with the country. So it was a it was a cool chapter in my life, and I still love that. I listen to that music all the time. I love Keith Urban. I love Rascal Flatts. Love all that era of country music. Love it.
Well, since we're talking about the time when you were writing in Nashville, what are some of the artists that you were working with?
Interesting enough, I didn't have anything recorded. I had a lot of things on hold. I had
Okay.
something on hold with Sarah Evans. Who else? A couple of different things. There was a guy named Philip White who at the time had written the big single for Rascal Flatts. So he was like, "Come on, we got." My publisher was like, "Write with this guy everything up tempo you could possibly think of." We wrote a lot of songs geared towards them. Um, there was an artist called Amber White. We wrote a bunch of things for her. She was on Hollywood Records. Her record never came out. And believe it or not, at the same in the same time, I was at a place called Murrah Music. They had her on this new guy named Luke Bryan, who obviously went on to become, pretty successful. He was always a talented guy,
A little successful anyway.
slightly successful. But my point is, I used to write with him, and
Okay.
before he was, huge. But he was. I always loved his own sort of songs he wrote for other people a little more than I loved his pop stuff he did himself. But he's a really deep, talented writer. So that was the world I was in. It was a great time, and I have fond memories of those times.
That's great. That's great. Okay, we're gonna back up again.
Oh yeah, when I took a couple of decades forward. Sorry.
No, that's okay though. It's all right. I don't mind jumping around. I just want to get back to where I was.
You said country. It triggered the whole thing. Sorry.
No, that's great. That's great. So the band Valentine,
Yes.
is that your first like big band where you had a recording contract and a record deal and all that?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And then how does that, how did that come about?
So
Obviously you had Gerard and you had Craig.
started with Gerard. Then
Yeah.
we met Neil. And then by the time we had another singer, this guy, I don't know, Jeff Rex. I'm not sure if that was his real last name, but he was great. That band was almost slightly rock, but like almost more like Missing Persons. It was a little rock, new,
Oh, wow.
which was cool. So we were playing and writing, and I don't know, we did some covers, some originals on the Long Island world. It was like a nice club circuit in Long Island. And then another band called Equinox, a pretty popular Long Island band, got their equipment stolen. So I don't know how it happened, but they're like, listen, if you let us use your equipment, you can play every gig with us. So meanwhile, I'm in high school. I'm like, holy shit. Well, like, sure, why not? So 3 nights a week, and they were all weeknights. It was rough. We played like Sunday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And I get home at like 6 in the morning and go to school. Like I couldn't even see, but we did that for like 6 months. It was unbelievable. I was really like some boot camp. And then we met Chris, so we were pretty well versed in the Long Island music scene. And then we knew if Hugo was playing in a Rush band. He was a great drummer, Hugo.
Oh, okay.
So Neil knew a lot of people. Neil was like the sort of knew everybody on the Long Island circuit, and that's how we met Craig. And then we convinced Hugo. We loved his voice. When I met Craig, that's when we started to really write like these kind of songs that became the Valentine first record. Like right away, like most of the first record, I shouldn't say most of it, we wrote like right when we met, like Naughty Girl, Someday, Once in a Lifetime. There's maybe I forgot. Maybe Too Much Is Never Enough. We wrote those like right away, like right when Craig and I met, and then right when Hugo came in, we really gelled and wrote those songs, and we demoed them, and things just started to, we were in the right place. And we went to California for a moment, just thinking we should the Sunset Strip is the place to get a deal. We went there for a moment. We realized this is the stupidest thing in the world because, we have to focus on living as opposed to focus on being a band. So we took in what they were doing out there. We came back to New York and really, we focused on our look, our sound, and the demos and the whole thing. And that's when, that was all of a sudden, it was like really quick. Once we came back, things started to really gel. And then we got signed to, I have to give the ultimate credit. I always give it to JJ French, Twisted Sister.
Oh, no way.
Well, because we rehearsed at a place, we had some friends in the industry, and we got to rehearse at a place called Nino's Studio. So
Okay.
Joan Jett rehearsed there, the Stray Cats, Twisted Sister, maybe some other, I'm not even sure, some other Long Island, Taylor Dane, like these pretty famous folks, and us. I don't know how we even let us in there, but so. However, at the time Twisted was huge, and they started to do these. They started to work with other bands. I think Dee Snider signed some people in production, and JJ and Mark were like, "Listen, we hear you guys playing. We want to develop you and help you go forward." And we started to work with them. And I'll try and make this short. It's a long-winded story, but
Tony, it's okay. It's all right. I don't have any place to be.
Gerard and I, decided we were interning at record companies. We first started at Columbia and
Okay.
we ended up at Polygram. So we knew people and we needed, all of a sudden, we needed a lawyer. Well, because we had to do some paperwork. We asked somebody around, so we got like this lawyer who's an entertainment lawyer. And to his credit, he's like, listen, this is not that it's a bad thing. He goes, but before you sign anything, can you give me 5 minutes to see, can we shop this around just before you commit to something on paper?
Okay.
And then another good friend of ours, Scott Bernstein, he was, I don't know, he knew everybody. He knew like the Lieber Krebs world. We'd already met Lewis at that point. And SBK, the publishing company decided they were opening a label, a management company, and a new publishing company. And they needed bands. So Arma Andin, he got our demo. This guy, Scott Bernstein, a friend of ours, he's like, before you sign, again, everyone was like, before you sign this, give me 3 days. Everyone,
Yeah.
and SBK signed us. So that was like a really big management company. And they, God bless them to this day, they helped us to really develop. They're like, listen, we're going to just write and record as much as you can. We'll fund the demos. And so we started to really write and make good demos. We brought in our manager, Louis Levin, to Arma Andin and co-manage it with Louis Levin. Louis Levin managed this great producer, Neil Kernan, who did all the Dokken records. He did, Romantics. He did Hall & Oates. We were
Right.
we were huge fans of his. He was like, listen, I'll make your record, but let's start with the demos. So here we were, like, our heads were exploding, working with our most favorite producer. So there was a great momentum. And then, so the labels knew who we were, and then we were playing the club circuit all around. It was just a great momentum building time. I think this was mid 87, 88, early 88,
Right.
87, 86 even. And then we showcased for Columbia and they said, we want you. And then, a little bit of twist in that little fork in the road. At the same time, the 90s were approaching. A new record company president came into Columbia,
Yeah.
said, I'm getting rid of some old stuff. I want some new stuff. The good news is that the guy who signed us, John Mervos, also got kicked off the label, but he took us with him to Warner Brothers Giant Records, which is, Warner Brothers Reprise Records.
Okay.
And so the whole thing went over there. So it was a little bit of momentum, slowing down, but we still did it. We still took the whole record and the whole package over there.
So the album actually never came out under Columbia.
No, it was recorded for Columbia and sold to Warner Brothers.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, because wasn't it released in like 89?
It was released in 90.
90.
Early 90, like right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we talked we were talking last week about it, and I like the album. I like the music on it. I like I just like everything about it. And as I'm listening to it, I'm saying, okay, well, I see when it was released, I kind of maybe understand why it didn't do bigger.
Oh, there's no question about it.
But I was thinking, well, I was thinking, if this thing had Bon Jovi on the album cover, forget it. It would have killed.
Also, but I think so. Thank you for that. But for our perspective, so if we hadn't we always say if we hadn't been dropped, we would have been in the same machine and as the Columbia machine, which was Warrant, Firehouse.
Right.
We used to go to all these events with them. And then, by the way, our band and Heaven's Edge didn't make it into the machine quite in time. We didn't make it into the shoot to get the promotion that machine. Because once you're in that machine, the videos, the promotion, those bands sold millions. So I think we would have, if we would have come out a little earlier. And by the way, who knew that things were going to change? Like Neil Kernan, the producer, he had a back injury. We're like, oh, no problem. We'll wait for you. No problem. We didn't even think that time would be an issue. But listen, I can't go backwards. I can only go forwards. And I can't look back with regret. we were so it was what it was. We were proud of the record. We really loved working with Neil Kernan. We definitely wanted to make a record that was like in the vein of Queensryche, Rage for Order, and like Pyromania. We really wanted like that real mechanical kind of sounding thing. We went for that sound. Not we didn't go for the loose live thing. We went for the real tight type of Def Leppard-y thing.
And it is very tight. And um, I mean, yes, it is very much of the time,
Right.
musically.
Totally.
But not only the whole Bon Jovi thing, but if that album comes out 3-4 years earlier, again with the name Valentine,
Correct.
now forget about it. Forget about it. It's
Correct.
gonna
No
kill.
question. Like Never Said It, would be easy. People still love that song, even though it never even came out as a single, but got voted all these awards and all these magazines loved it. So listen, we did the best we could for the time. We can't change what happened. So we had a lot of love. We had a lot of support,
Yeah.
even with the like changing tides. We had a lot of people in our court who were pushing for us. So that was then the miracle of all miracles. Our manager stayed with us after we got dropped from, Warner, and we got another record deal, which was talk about crazy. That was one of the greatest miracles of my life.
Especially in the early 90s.
Correct.
Because now was there a reason, and this takes me to the next one,
Sure.
what was there a reason why there was a rebranding of the band going from Valentine to Open Skies?
Yes. So a couple of things happened. It wasn't like an initial, we're going to sign you, but change the name.
Right.
No one, not even, didn't come up till the album was about to come out. We, again, we'll talk about a great chapter in my life. We got signed. Richie Zito, tremendous producer, songwriter, player.
Eddie Money.
Right. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Cheap Trick, The Flame. You could share. I mean, you go on. And he played guitar with Elton John. The guy's incredible.
Yeah.
Real song guy. He's like, let me work with you guys, just because his whole thing was like, forget everything you know and just trust me. And we're like, okay. And then we brought in a guy named Rob Jacobs. Rob he did all his Don Henley records. He mixed all the Don Henley stuff. He was working on that Eagles Hell Freezes Over album at the time. He mixed Rattle and Hum. And the guy was like, we were like, holy shit. So their whole thing was like, so I'm getting to the answer to the question, I promise.
No, it's okay. This is the great stuff here. This is the storytelling, and I love it.
Now, this is how it happened. So people think, well, what'd you just try and pretend you were a different band? No. So we started, their whole thing was write with different people than you ever wrote with before, work with outside people. They're like, literally, get some new guitars. I mean, I swear to God, they were like, use different instruments, use different, everything you thought of before. Don't do that. Not in a negative way, but just something might influence you differently. And their thing was like, we don't want you to not rock, but they're like, don't rock like Winger, rock like Lenny Kravitz. You know what I'm saying?
Well, there's a definite difference in the sound of the Open Skies album than Valentine. There's not the big guitar distortion, none of that stuff.
Right. It's there, but it's more like it's really like a Marshall, Les Paul and a Marshall. It's really, really straight ahead rock and roll.
Right.
A little mellower.
Yeah.
Some different vibes, different instruments, a whole different thing. So we wrote with all these different great writers, and one of them was Glenn Burtnick, who was in Styx for a while.
Yeah.
Huge artist on his own right.
Yeah.
Super talented guy. And we wrote a bunch of songs with him. And one of them was the title track, Open Skies. And somehow, I don't know, it was like we had changed drummers. It was just a different chapter in the band's history. So somehow I'm like, wow, everyone sort of unanimously was like, is it Valentine anymore? And I don't think it is. So, and we felt this optimistic, here we got a new record deal. What do people believe? We were so grateful. And the song Open Skies had this really like open skies. The future it was an optimistic message. And we just all gravitated towards that. And that we like, I don't know, just felt like, right. Like, wow, this is a new chapter.
Yeah.
And the label, to their credit, they were like, listen, you didn't sell enough records where anybody's like like no one's waiting for the next Valentine record. I don't mean to be negative. They're like, you're big enough that you got this new record deal, but yet you weren't big enough that anybody is going to care if it's not called Valentine.
Okay.
And by the way, it wasn't a Valentine record. So either way, that's how it came to be. That song triggered the name Open Skies.
Even though it was the same band
Yeah,
minus the drummer.
right. It was the same, right. Just a
Yeah.
different it was a different chapter. I mean, but so
Yeah.
listen, we also, the label was, that's what they were, everyone was involved. The management, the label, the band, we were all behind it.
And like I said, and it's a really good record. I told you that last week as well. It's a really good record. It's just it's not quite 180 from Valentine. It's maybe about 90 degrees from Valentine.
And when that was so bizarre, like we had the single that came out, Every Day of Your Life, was a real up-tempo rocker. And at that time, like I'll tell you who was out when we came out. Like Brother Kane was out on rock radio.
Okay.
Collective Soul had come out on rock radio. Who else can I think of? I don't even know. Tonic. There was like, sort of like that real, just like guitar-y, real simple stuff. So
Yeah.
those are the guys we were out doing all this promotion with. And every day, it's so funny, there wasn't much guitar jamming on that record, but the one song that
I'm
Every Day of
looking
My
at the
Life,
album right now.
Every Day of
That's
My
what I'm
Life
doing.
has a crazy, some great guitar on it. Either way, it became a nice single for us.
Yeah.
And we were able to tour on that single, and it worked. It worked out.
So a few years later, now you're without a band, right?
Right. Correct. Once that, 96, I think that went up till the end of 95. Once again, the label was like, I don't, who knows, the politics of the labels. We're like, well, why can't we, let's do another record? I don't know. We always thought we should have done another Open Skies record, but we didn't have that opportunity. So we were just deflated at that point. We were just like exhausted. It'd been even though it only been about a decade, it was just, about 30 years of life and a roller coaster ride of the music business. We were just like, holy shit, we were.
That's a lot of.
No one, but we didn't like fight. It wasn't like the band broke up and was like, there was never that. It was just like, we were just like emotionally exhausted and like, I don't want to even see anybody. Not, like I said, not in a brotherly like friendship way, but just like, we were PTSD. We were just like, holy shit, man. So we all went ways and, had kids and just sort of lived some sort of civilian life for a couple of years. And, but we all listened. We always got together and we saw each other and we played and we wrote, I did a little thing with Tom, the drummer. And then later on, Hugo got the itch to play again. He's like, he was one of the first guys to do a tribute band. He was like, that was right when there was never even a thing called a tribute band.
Right.
He always got his balls busted because he looked like Steve Perry, a blessing and a curse. Listen, it was a blessing and a curse. There's no way around it. So he was like, fuck that. Here we are. Let's go play. If that's what I look like and we could play gigs, let's do it. So he asked me to do it. I'm like, oh my God, are you sure? Either way, that's when we started to play together. And Gerard became our manager. And it all turned into we started playing it. And then all of a sudden, once we started doing that in the mid 2000s, then then the 80s started to have a nostalgic kind of comeback.
A whole big giant revival.
Right. And that's when we got invited because people saw us like, well, you guys are playing together. Like, cut the shit, get Valentine and come play at these festivals. So we did. And then we made Soul Salvation. We made another record. We made a whole nother record,
Under the Valentine name?
Yeah, it's called Soul Salvation. I don't know if it's on streaming. If not, I'll send you one.
Yeah, I haven't found that one. Oh, yeah.
So that's like but that's like people were like, wait, what's this? It was like a 2010 version of Valentine. It wasn't quite 80s.
Yeah.
It was 90. It was a little different, but I'll get you that. So
that
we've
would
always
that would
been
be
together.
great.
Then one thing led to the other, and then we met. We ended up working with Steve. Some of us, and Hugo kept his thing going, and some of us went with Steve. So it's been never ending,
Well, okay. Before I move into where I'm going,
sorry.
No.
The question, I went on a complete ramble.
No. This is all great because it's leading into everything that I wanted to kind of cover too. But in all transparency, I'm going to see Hugo tomorrow night.
Listen, Hugo, the band Voyage is,
Yes.
and by the way, Robbie Hoffman, their guitar player and manager, one of my dearest, another guy, that's a whole nother podcast, one of my dearest friends, right? Literally, he has taken that, the Hugo is Hugo, but he has taken them to such a great level. They're so good. If you're going to see a Journey band, I mean, there's like seriously unbelievable. So they're fantastic.
Well, it's just kind of funny because my wife and I, we were talking. This was after you and I had begun trying to work this out here, and we were talking. Last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, and I don't remember how it came up, but I started mentioning that you and Hugo were in the same band in Valentine and Open Skies and this, and I just went and I found a Voyage video on YouTube. We were driving, so I'm holding my iPad. I let her drive, and so I pop it open, and I don't remember what song it was, but we played this Journey song, and she says, "Oh my God, he sounds great."
No, he does. The guy's unbelievable. He goes so good.
Where we need to go see them.
Right.
Okay, fine. I went right on the website. Right. I was like, son of a gun, they're actually going to be here on the West Coast. So
I think they're on the West Coast tonight. Was that playing?
They've got a show tonight, but I'm going tomorrow night. I have to drive a little further tomorrow night, but I'm going tomorrow night. So I took the day off of work. And
so listen, I will make sure that you get to meet them. After this, I'll text Robbie and get you.
Oh. No, we're gonna be sitting like fourth row on the
either way. I'll
left side of the stage.
I will connect. I'll connect everybody. They're like all those guys.
That would thank you. I greatly appreciate it. Now I'm getting embarrassed here. So
all good,
okay, man. So this is what's really cool. This is what I was telling you about last week. The little minutia here that the audience needs to know.
Yes.
Okay, so you were in two bands with a guy who is now in a Journey tribute band singing Steve Perry stuff. And now you are in a band with the guy who's the former lead singer of Journey, the Steve Jerry band. And I think that is so awesome.
That is correct. And Robbie Hoffman and I will joke about this all the time about our 6 degrees to separation to Journey. Let me say, first of all, that I absolutely respect and I'm so lucky that I get to play this catalog of Journey songs. I always like to say that, holy shit, I'm so grateful that I get to play these songs because of Steve. That's first of all. And I didn't really plan this. I don't know how it really happened, but what you just said is pretty interesting. How I went from a Journey tribute band with the closest guy to Steve Perry ever to be, who's not Steve Perry, which is Hugo, to playing with Steve Jerry, who replaced Steve Perry. It's like, what?
Yeah.
It's. I'm not really sure how to answer that question, but so
no. It's
Neil Sean. Listen, how lucky am I? Listen, I hope I've never met Neil Sean, and I know obviously Steve and all those guys know him well, and I always just like to say that if I ever did meet him, I thank you for this incredible good body of work, and I hope I do justice to his guitar solos. I try and do justice. I try and make them my own, but yet do service to his foundation that he laid. So
yeah. Well, I like I said, you guys need to get out here to Southern California so I can take in a show.
We will be out there. I think we were out there last year, so I would every year take us different places. So
I think it was somewhere in Northern California.
It was, yes. We went to Muir Woods. You're right. It was.
Yeah.
So
see, I keep track. I'm no phony baloney here.
Here's a funny thing. Just a little backtrack with Steve Jerry. So when Open Skies toured with Mr. Big, right in the early '90s, the other band they toured like this long tour, and Open Skies and Tall Stories flip-flopped like on this tour. I'm like, who's Tall Stories? And I'm like, I heard the record. I'm like, this guy's fucking great. And they were like Tall Stories, another one of those bands. They were not really an '80s band. They were more of they were more like a Candlebox. They were way more '90s, but they got like totally caught in like like they weren't 90s enough. I don't know why that record didn't do it. It was so great.
Right. That's
Holy
right. They
shit.
were not 90s enough. They weren't grungy enough. You
No,
know, they didn't want to
but
look at
you
their
know what though?
shoes.
They were more like STP and like again, Candlebox was huge. I'm like, how did this record not like they weren't an 80s band, but they got
Yeah.
sort of clumped into they got clumped into an 80s band because they were also on Epic. Pearl Jam came out. I mean, it's typical label kind of stuff. I don't know how to say it, but they
Right.
didn't get their due. They didn't get their due. What a great record. So we knew of Steve Augeri before he was in Journey because we had this shared, even though we never toured at the same time, we had this shared Mr. Big tour. So
But you shared the same stage, though.
that's how we first knew of Tall Stories and Steve Augeri. Then
Yeah.
the Journey gig, we're like, holy shit, he was the perfect guy. We all loved that 2001 CD. They made a DVD, I think. We all loved it.
The Arrival album. What a
Right.
tremendous album.
Oh my God. But so when Hugo and I, Hugo's had the vision of this Journey, but we literally did all the arrangements from the Steve Augeri DVD.
Oh.
Okay, you with me? So I'm like, I had that thing embedded in my brain. So it just gets crazier. Then the Journey tribute band Evolution with Hugo,
Yeah.
we did all kinds of, we traveled, we were huge. It was a really big band. We did the opening night for the show Rock of Ages, the Broadway show.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then we would do these monthly cast parties across the street. So if you had a ticket to the show, you can get into this gig at the China Club, and then the cast members would be there, and there was always some guest singer. Like you're with me. Like sometimes Twisted Sister guys would show up, different.
Yeah, yeah.
So one night, Steve Augeri sang with us.
Oh, no.
So that's how I don't know. It naturally evolved into like he was looking for a band, and we're like, wow, we'd love to do it. So it wasn't like any. It just was. It wasn't. It was all just like this natural path. So then Robbie, who was my sub before all that, right with me,
Yeah.
he became that band went on that way. We went on this way. So
Well, see, you had to go through all the crap with Valentine and Open Skies to get you to this moment here.
it all when you like anything in life, looking back, what's that say? It's the Rascal Flatts song, God bless the broken road. That I can't complain. I can't. I'm a grateful guy. I say it every time someone asks me about an interview. I'm always so grateful that I'm at this age getting to play and do what I love to do.
Oh yeah. I mean, you're a touring musician. Are you kidding me? Come on.
You're right.
And
I remind myself every day. I'm like, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay. So we did talk about it, and I want to touch on this because I know you're very proud of it, and I absolutely love it. And that's this thing right here.
Oh yes.
7 Ways Till Sunday, and this was Steve's first solo album.
Right. Solo album. He put out a bunch of singles through the years.
Yes. Yeah.
Some of those we worked on them, and but this one was his first real I'm making an entire record. Every demo he ever had or any of us ever had, we brought it out. Like let's we had time for the first time in all our lives. We had a lot of time on our hands. So it's mostly Steve. That is Steve's baby, and I performed on most of it and wrote. I don't know.
You have four co-writes on
right,
it.
Exactly. I don't even know how many. And Craig as well.
Yep.
And but I helped him with most of the record. We had a great time working on it. It was but Steve, it's really that is his mastermind, it's his baby. He did a great job, and I think I'm really proud of those songs. I love those. I really love the feel of the things I contributed to it. I love the things he did. Oh my God, Unanswered Prayers, I think is one of my favorite songs.
I will tell you this. Look, I told you before off air that this was my album of the year last year, 2023. This is my album of the year. It's a rotation. I play it all the time. I mean, obviously I have the physical, but I stream it and I listen to stream. I stream music just for the convenience of it because I can listen to it anywhere.
Correct.
But if I really want to get down, then I'll go plug headphones into my CD player and go sit in my loft and then crank it up.
The
But
production, by the way, the production, Steve produced it. He did a great job, man.
it's it it's absolutely phenomenal. And I think my favorite song on it is one of your co-writes,
Oh,
and
thank
that's beautiful.
Oh, that's one of my
I
favorites. I
that
love
is
that song.
just that is just such a killer song.
Thank you.
It's look, yes, top to bottom, the whole album is great, but everyone's gonna have a favorite track or
Correct.
two. And man, that one, I think from the very first time I heard that song, it just stuck with me.
Well, thank you. I'm very proud of that song, and that was one of those songs. That's like a classic. Remember, I mentioned Craig and I back in the day. Like when Craig and I get in a room together, a song happens. We can't help it.
Yeah.
If 2 feet away, what are you playing? But what's cool now with technology, Craig, with Steve O'Geary too, and it happens with Gerard. It's so we do like either you're in a room together and you're writing. That's the ultimate way to write a song, right? That's the classic
That's
song.
the classic way, yes.
However, there's another thing we do, like play like kickball. Well, someone will send a riff. Like Craig will send me that riff. I won't tell him. I won't even ask him. I'll just take it. I'll chop it up and redo it and send it back to him. With me, he's like, "What the fuck did you do to this?" But he's like, "Okay." Then he'll take it blindly without showing me and do the same. So that's a classic example. Then we passed it to Steve O'Geary. He's like, "Okay." He took it and chopped it. So that was a classic, really like tech. I don't know what you call it, file sharing, collaboration. So that's like all those songs that I'm mentioning that we wrote. We did that way. We kicked it around, and Steve would record something, and it was a fun. It actually was a fun process because we weren't able to be near each other. We just took it. Literally, how we're sitting on Zoom right now. I mean, I think we
Right.
were like, I must have Zoomed 600 hours with Steve, and so then the guitar solos. I'd play a solo. He'd say, "How about this?" He'd take the solo and chop it up. I'd play it. So it was fun. We had a really good time in that wacky way of COVID and file sharing. We made the best of it.
Because what a lot of people don't know is Steve is Steve's a pretty a pretty prolific guitar player himself, isn't he?
First of all, he's a drummer. He plays piano. He played a lot of stuff. He's a great guitar player,
Yeah.
great singer, great writer, and
And I wasn't aware. I mean, I knew he could play bass from way back in his years with Journey. I saw a special night with Journey, and there's two bass players on the stage, him and Ross
he
Valerie.
played a little guitar.
So I knew that, but I really had no idea until, I don't know, it's probably over a year ago. I happened to find the singles that he had been releasing,
Right.
and I don't remember which service I was looking at, but it was actually breaking down
Right.
the credits, the who
Right.
was playing and all that.
Right.
And I see Steve and Jerry guitar, this and that, and I was like, holy cow, because
Right.
I guess usually you see a front man and you just
Right.
figure, okay, this guy just sings, okay, he writes, whatever, but he just
He's
sings.
great. Going back to one of the first songs. So by the way, "Bated Breath," which I love that song, was one of the first things we ever wrote together,
Okay.
like 10 years ago. Like I first met him, we wrote that. So that finally got its due. That's been recorded a few times, but it wasn't right. This came out wonderful. And there's a single he released years ago called "Hours in the Day,"
Mm-hmm.
which we worked on together. That's a great song. We almost put it on the record, but it was already, wanted to keep it in its own world. But he's done some great work, Steve, through the years. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, you guys, all of you, have just a ton to be proud of with this record. It's
I agree.
just
Thank you. Yeah,
is
I applaud that.
absolutely dynamite. So, all right, so let me ask you this. Now, obviously, the Steve and Jerry band goes out, and I'm sure they're probably playing a lot of songs from the Journey catalog. And do you guys put any focus on the Steve and Jerry years in Journey, besides maybe doing Higher Place or All the Way?
Here's the thing: we played them all. By the way, All the Way, Higher Place, Meet Again. We've played God, you name it.
Oh my gosh, till we meet again. Oh,
Right.
what a just a
We played them all.
dynamite
What's the
song.
one from that? We played the one from I love the one from the big soundtrack. What's that song?
Oh, Remember Me.
I love that song. So,
That is a
but here's the thing: when we
dynamite
play in
song.
America, no one cares about those songs. I mean, people do want to hear some of them, but when we
Yeah,
go
like
like
me.
right when we go to like Europe or we go to South America every year, we'll play a lot of those. We play like the deep dark cuts.
And
They
see,
love them.
that's
They know them. It's
I look, I love all the hits. That's great,
mhm.
but there's so many
I know.
tremendous songs. They're just
Arrival
they're
is such a
deep
great
tracks or
record.
whatever.
Arrival is like, I mean, seriously, All the Way is, I think, one of the best Journey songs. It's like such a great song, man.
It is a great song.
Really,
And,
really
and look,
incredible song.
I saw Steve on every Journey tour he was a part of,
Right.
and so you know I'm a tremendous fan, and I think unfortunately I don't want to say he gets crap,
No,
but he does, and it's unjust because he was the guy that had to replace the
okay,
absolute
let's,
legend of all
here's
time.
what it is, and it's not any secret. And above it, talk about a thing we joke about with Hugo. This is another, like, we all have these text groups going on.
I know what you're gonna
So
say.
no, so people who like Steve Perry love Hugo because they're like, holy, she's the second coming of Steve Perry. You with me? So in New York, I know this sounds silly. We don't play New York. We let Voyage play 4,000 seats in New York. I'm serious. And God bless them. And they do,
Yeah.
because Steve Perry fans are like, to Steve Algieri, like, how dare you? Who do how you. However, the other side of it is that Steve Algieri carried the torch for that decade to get them to Arnell. So that, listen, Steve Algieri has his fans. I'm not saying he doesn't. Don't get, but there's a lot of people who don't know who he is, and they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, the guy, yeah, all they know is that he, maybe had voice troubles, and but then they don't know about the decade of these albums and stuff." So, but here's the thing: the good news is there are enough people who do know that want to hear him play, and we still keep playing.
Now, okay. So, well, I'm going to ask you
So
to hold
you
on
don't
one
think that
second.
hope that came out positive. Do you know what I'm saying, though?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. Now, see here.
Let me add one more thing. I always joke. So I live in New York. People say, "What do you do?" I'm like, "I play with." Who do you play with? Steve Algieri. People flat look. I'm like, "Oh, we
Yeah.
replaced the guy." Oh, like, "Oh, okay." That's how I have to describe it. You go to, like, so you step a little bit to the Midwest. You get off the plane. People know exactly who Steve is. Like, "Oh my God, I saw you with the Civic Center 2001.
Yeah.
Both can I get a picture?" Okay, they love him. We play all over the Midwest, and it's great. You go to Europe, and they're showing up with every Tolstoy's, every Valentine CD, every Open Sky CD. Okay, then we go to South America, and they're waiting outside the fucking hotel for Steve. So
Uh,
I'm like, so it's like, it's pretty funny. So my
that's great. See, and that's because those people are so rabid. They just love the music, and they appreciate what they appreciate the bands that they like, and they appreciate the job that Steve did for
right,
the 9-10 years he was in the band. But the lost era of that band, besides the within the all three Steve Augeri albums, is,
right,
and my favorite is the EP Red 13.
right.
And I saw them on that tour, and I think Steve was mad that night because he came out and I think he was, and probably rightfully so, because Journey been getting a little bit of heat and catching some crap for what they were doing, reviving their careers and doing a tremendous job at it as well. I mean, here in Southern California, they were playing the Glen Helen Amphitheater and still drawing 30,000 people
Right.
outdoors, but he comes out and he says, Journey is a rock and roll band, and then they cut into the hardest song on the Red 13. They
Let me tell you,
jumped right into
Neil
it.
Schon, some of his best guitar playing, I think, is on Arrival and Generations.
Uh,
My opinion. His tone, his solo. I mean, Higher Place. I mean, damn, he was fucking
Higher
smart.
Place is a tremendous song.
Those two albums, both albums, the whole those two, that era.
Yeah, well, the 3 albums plus the
Right.
EP. Yes, great, great, great stuff. It really is. But how much do you guys play of this?
We have played Magic. We've played Seven Whistle Sunday.
Okay.
We've not played Beautiful. We played I'll look at my set list. So we
I
played.
was I was just going to ask you, when you come to Southern California, make sure you're really close to where I live. Let me know, and I'll put the set list together for you guys. How's that?
Yeah, we've played a bunch of. Yeah, we've played them. People. Once in a while we try and sneak it in.
Because it's gonna be I could do a complete set list of all Steve Jerry stuff.
Well,
That's
I'm happy to do it for this.
because and probably 6 or 7 of those tunes would be off of this. So
Seven,
that
I love Seven Ways Till Sunday. To me, I just love that song.
it
That's
is.
a real Craig. That's a real Craig piano song. He really did a great job there, man.
I don't know if the lyrics on the entire album were collaboration, or if one guy wrote more than the other guy, whatever it was, but the lyrical content on this album, song after song after song, is
It's
just
most of the
dynamite.
lyrics are really Steve's emotional stuff. That's his stuff. Magic. Now, interesting. I wrote the first draft of lyrics to Magic because. Let's give a comment to Steve. Yes, the lyrics you're talking about are Steve. Those beautiful lyrics are Steve.
Okay.
The only lyric I contributed were Magic, where the song had almost a Poison kind of Foo Fighter feel to it, right? So we had a funny working title, and I don't know why. Somehow, by the way, one of my favorite Bruce Springsteen records is his Magic record, which is his
Oh
least
yeah.
popular record. It's so phenomenal. I don't know why I like it, but I just that period of my life, I love that record. So there's a song, Mad and the Magic. So when I heard that song, I don't know, I had the title. I just put the title Magic in there, and then I wrote the lyrics, and Steve took them and rehashed them. So that was my only lyrical contribution. But Steve did a wonderful job on the whole record. So
Look, I'm just whatever, top to bottom. It's just a great album, and you guys really I mean, you guys knocked it out of the park when you put
thank you
this
so much.
album together. And I know what really sucks is that, the state of the music climate, this stuff doesn't sell. People just aren't out there buying it, and it really, really stinks.
But
Uh,
but here's the thing: the opposite side of that in this climate is artists can be creative and put out records. No label breathing over their shoulder. It doesn't matter if it's going to sell. It
yeah.
can be a creative outlet, and I think it's a little more true and authentic because you're not worried about, am I going to have a radio single? No, you're not going to have one. So you put out an authentic record, and you know what? The fans who want to hear it will seek it out and hear it.
Yeah.
It's my feeling on it.
Well, and there's a ton of truth to what you just said, but just like with my little tiny podcast
Right.
here, I have my niche audience, but I would love to be able to
Understood.
grow it, reach more people that aren't aware of
Understood.
what I do. Look, I'm not ever looking to make money on this. That's not why I do it. I do it just for the pure enjoyment
Right.
that I get from doing this, and get from having guests on my show, people like you, because this has been absolutely wonderful, Adam, and I've taken up so much of your time.
It's all good. It's a good.
But
I always say these are like a therapy session. When I do these podcasts, I feel like I should pay you for like a therapy session. So thank you.
hey, look, I like to think that I kind of do things a little bit differently than the average person that wants to have an interview, because this isn't an interview. This is just two guys talking.
Well, you know what's great about this is that you really are a fan and you know the deep tracks and you know like the players, Hugo, Steve, all the guys in the band. So it's an easy conversation.
Well, I appreciate that. It's no BS, because you go to a radio station and you got an 8-minute interview with the jock there on the morning
Right.
show or whatever, and they know that it's X band that's coming in.
Right.
Never heard your music. They
Right.
play it on their way in the studio. They play it
Right.
on your way out of the studio, and that's the end of it.
Understood.
You
We've
know,
all
that's
done
just
that. Listen, we've all done it. And but back to the comment you made about as a creative person. So here is your podcast. I'm a songwriter, performer. Getting back to the Valentine days, the open sky days. You always wish, as a creative person, that like one of your creations, your song, become a hit song. And the dream is to like play in a place and have people sing back your song. That is always the ultimate, really thing. So I know you're saying it would have been great if in a time where there would be a legitimate single, like a video, like back in the MTV days when like
Yeah.
Steve would have a single, or he'd have a video. So that is a different time now. But the other side of it, the social media and the fact that we can all keep playing, it's a what's different. Like what we do, we play all year long because we go on the weekends, we come home, as opposed to a 2 month tour that we don't play for 10 months. We get to play all year long. I think it's better. I love it. It's kind of like the Nashville model. The Nashville guys go out Thursday, Friday, Saturday, come home and do it all year long.
Right.
So we're kind of really like the weekend warrior fly day thing. We really become used to it. We love it. And the same is back to the guys in Voyage. They do the same. They go out a couple of days. So it's
Yeah.
really a good time for, I don't know, I don't know, maybe we're older, wiser. I don't know what it is, but
Well, there's just something about live music, and
right.
and I love to see live music, and I love to see it performed by the bands and artists that I admire. And I've seen bands that I like on off nights, and I've seen them when they are just absolutely on
Right.
fire, and man, they just tear the place down.
No, I think, for us, it always happens. We've always traveled some distance, and it's, that's part of the process. Then by the time you get there, you're like, you know what? If there's 10 people or 10,000, we're going to give it 100, 120%. So
Yeah, it's kind of like that Joe DiMaggio thing where he always gave his all no matter who was there because he
correct.
didn't know who was seeing him play for the first time. Hey, who
Right.
is this
That's,
guy?
that's exactly right. Also, I look at it like this, and I feel this way, that for me and the audience, the world is a crazy place in 2024, right? It always has been, but it seems extra crazy these days.
Yeah, I will agree.
Whatever, I'm not sure, whatever it is, it's just there's a lot going on. Let's get right, am I right? Good and bad and crazy. So for the hour and a half that we play, or you go see a band, not just us, but if you go to a concert, the band and the audience suspends all the shit going on, and for a brief moment, you can have a shared moment of happiness. And I take that for granted. And I see the audience. So if we can bring an hour and a half of relief to the shit, the shit that's going on in the
Oh
world,
yeah,
then I hope
absolutely.
we can do that. That's the sort of, that's
Okay, I'm gonna start wrapping this up here because, like I said, you have been so very generous with
that's
your
pleasure.
time.
It's all good. I didn't, it's all good.
This has been absolutely wonderful. Are there any plans for, are you guys talking about doing another album or anything?
Not yet. I mean, we're always writing. I've already
Okay.
started sort of plotting ahead the next instrumental record. And I'm always keeping track of songs. I start to make a little file catalog.
Yeah.
Then myself, Gerard, and Craig are doing a little project with another singer, just a fun recording. This guy named Matthew Shad. He's a great singer. He's in a band called Shad. He's a great guy. We know him through the years. A totally different voice. We wrote a bunch of songs with him. So
Okay.
again, we all love the creative outlet. So it's like you live in a time where you can record something professionally and put it out. So whatever kind of happens, we go with it.
It just hit me, but I like your approach to it. There's a lot of, not a lot. There's a bunch though of bands that are, the ones that we grew up with, been around for years, legendary bands, and at some point they just stopped putting out music
Right.
and became more of a nostalgic act.
Right.
And that saddens me, but it's, you hear different excuses. Well, nobody wants to buy it, blah, blah, blah,
Sure.
that kind of thing. And then you have some artists that say, I don't care if
Right.
no one buys it.
Correct.
This is what I do.
Pearl Jam, Metallica, they still put out music all the time, but they don't give a shit. But they have such a hardcore fan base that their fans love it.
Yeah.
But they're like, listen, we're in a band, we make music. Period.
This is my job. This is what I do.
And that's what I do. I'm a songwriter. I enjoy the process of writing songs and having them heard. I write songs for hire for some other people. I've done some commercials. So I write
Love it.
all kinds of stuff. Actually, on my YouTube page is a spot called like other songs, which is like these like random other songs. I'll send you that link. So my point is,
All right.
there's all kinds of, it's not just, it's writing songs and recording I love the producing part. I really, really love that part too. So
That's
it's
great.
fun.
That's
So
great.
all
Okay,
right,
so
I need a nap. Tone it in.
after I close up the show, just stay with me, okay? Just stay
Yes,
with me.
gotcha.
Once I hit stop,
Understood.
you gotta stick with me. Um, so I want to finish. We opened up, and I want to
Yes,
finish with the new album Rapture.
yes, thank you.
All instrumental, 8 tracks. And if you're worried about people, if you're worried about it being too long, it's like 25 minutes, okay?
Right.
8 tracks, 25 minutes.
That's another thing I did
It,
that on purpose. I almost went old school, like, a vinyl record back in the day wasn't very
it's like
long.
33 minutes, you know?
I
Yeah.
purposely did that. I wasn't trying to go. CDs were like 16 hours. It was too long.
Yeah.
And they had to fill up the space. So I went old school vinyl.
Well, that it's just great, and it's so tasty, people. It's so has so much soul in it, and Adam's guitar tone is so it's just so good.
Thank you, sir.
So just check it out. It's on all the streaming services. Check it out again. It's called Rapture. Um, and I'm going to wrap it here, people. So let me close it by saying that this program is available on multiple podcast platforms like, oh, I don't know, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Spotify, or just search the Ben Maynard program, choose your option and go with it. But if you're having a great time like we're having and you want to see all this instead of listen to it and you're watching on YouTube, then please subscribe to the channel. Give me a thumbs up and leave a comment. Last but not least, follow me on Instagram, Ben Maynard Program. We are done, people. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Adam, as well. Greatly, greatly appreciate it. This is the Ben Maynard Program. Tell a friend.
Hey, can I throw